Hi everyone, this is Amy from the Helms Academy, and today we'll be looking at making priorities, urgent versus important. This is initially written and produced by our tutor, Esri, at the Helms Academy Dornsife, and it's narrated today by Amy. So today we're going to look at the Eisenhower Matrix. So this is actually created by President Dwight Eisenhower, who's known for his productivity, and he put this in 4 quadrants. And you can see, if you look at the quadrants off to the side, that there are things that are urgent or not urgent, and things that are important or not important, and any combination of those things. Urgent things are defined as things that are time sensitive, and they require your attention now. And they typically are the things that make us really reactive and anxious and stress, perhaps the things that keep you up at night when you have a long list of them in your head. Things that are important are tasks that cause us to be proactive, and they ask us to strategize, and they really contribute to our long-term goals. But they may not be requesting anything from us right in this moment. So you can see some examples on here, and we'll look into more detail at each of these in the next few slides. So quadrant 1 is the important and the urgent. These are tasks that have clear deadlines, and they really must be completed by these deadlines or by the end of the day. These are things like school assignments or work that have a specific deadline on them. They must be turned in by this particular time, or this task must be completed by a particular time. And they could also be things in your life that are requiring things from you in that moment. For example, a dirty diaper from a baby. That would be a very important and urgent matter. Now, these things could have something like a client project, or if you're writing a draft of something, or some emails may be both urgent and important. They need to be responded to very quickly, as well as some phone calls. Or if your kid calls from school and they're sick, that could be another example. But these are things that you need to do now. If it's both important and urgent, you are going to have to step up and take care of that problem at that moment. Now for quadrant 2, these are things that are important to us, but they're not urgent. These are things that don't have deadlines, but they're really important if we want to get where we're going in the long term. So this is where you should be spending a lot of your time, because it requires you to be thinking about the future. And if you're not spending time here, you'll pay for it down the road by not getting to where you were hoping to be in a month, a year, 5 years. So this are things like career or future planning, exercising, journaling, studying, even family time. And these things are all really important. We could even include exercise on this list. They're important for our long-term selves, but every day we could choose to put them off. And this also goes for your studies. When you're an adult learner and you're working towards the GED or HiSET or TASC, you're trying to get that high school credential, it's really important to remember that each day it may not be urgent for you to log on or to complete that full assignment or whatever it might be, but it is important in the long term. So in quadrant 2, we really have to think about how we'll schedule these things to make sure that they'll fit in. The urgent and important things, they're going to make their way into our lives. But these things that are important but not urgent, we need to put in our schedule. For quadrant 3, these are things that are not important, but they are urgent. So these are tasks that need to be done, but maybe they don't need to be done by you. These are adding to things that we often worry about, but maybe they could be taken off of your plate. So for example, oftentimes, not always, but cooking or household chores. If there's someone else in your home who could assist with those things or take some of that burden off, that could be somewhere where you could delegate out. I also gave the example in our session today of thinking about if there's someone in your life who you could share some of these responsibilities with. I talked to one person recently who said that they make a large batch of food at their house and their neighbor makes a large batch of food, and then they take half of it to the other person. So that way you have 2 different meals to work with during the week, but you only made one of them. So that kind of sharing of responsibility, whether it's with people in your household or neighbors or family in the area, that could be a good way to think about delegating out. These are also things that you can plan for. So if cooking feels like something that's urgent every day and you're not sure what the meal is going to be that day, consider doing things like meal prep to help you plan for that ahead of time so that the urgency of it is not there. Our quadrant 4 is not important and not urgent. So these are the things that take up a lot of our time, but they're unnecessary activities and too much of them can be unhealthy. So these things are all okay in moderation, but they're really not helping us get to the goals in our lives most of the time. So some examples could be being on social media, scrolling through, watching TV or video games, eating junk food. These kinds of things that we fill our time with, that they are not urgent, they don't require anything from us right now, and they're not really important towards maybe some long-term bigger goals in our life. They may give us some joy, so it's okay to do these in moderation, but too much of them can get in the way of us actually accomplishing so many of the other things we really want to put our time and energy in. So the more that we can inventory what we're using our time on in this quadrant 4 with unnecessary activities or things that we could do without, the more we're able to see where we might be able to relocate some of our time and put more time into studies or family or health. Now, a couple of last tips. Make sure you're keeping track of your long-term goals. What are the things that you really want to accomplish into the future? And how can you get there? If you're keeping an eye on those goals and keeping track of them, especially somewhere that's visible, it'll help you stay on that track. You can also consider that if you have too many things you feel are in quadrant 1, you may need to reevaluate what actually is really urgent and really important at the same time. Oftentimes when we're stressed, it can feel like everything is urgent and important, but if we sit down and really think about it, we might be able to put some of those things off until later so that we can better handle what's happening in front of us now. And lastly, make sure that you're dedicating enough time to the tasks in quadrant 2. Those are the things that are important but are not urgent. That's going to really help you in the long term. Here's a little matrix that you could use and you can make on a sheet of paper to come up with what things in your life fit into these categories. Here's an example that Esri gave. Feel free to pause your screen and take a look at the things that she thought of in these different categories. Then see what you can come up with in your categories. It may look different from Esri's, and that's okay. These are good options to think about, and you can apply what fits from your life into these squares. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you learned something new. A big thanks to Esri for putting together this presentation. Don't forget to check out our other Helms Academy videos, and also check us out on Facebook and Instagram and on our website at helmsacademy.org.